What is the worst thing that has happened at a high school reunion party that you attended? My sister, my now husband, and I were all in the same graduating class. Plus, my husband's best friend. Best friend's name is something like John Smith. Very common. He was very popular in HS. Super nice guy. Stood out in a crowd. If you didn't know him, you certainly knew of him. Even in a massive school. So anyway, the 20 years reunion rolls around. My sister is the only one who wanted to go. She called right after, very upset. Apparently there was a huge memorial wall for John Smith, who had just died. None of us knew. Awful. My husband was like, huh? But we just saw him, called him up, and was like, hey dude, are you dead? No, not dead. Surprised, but not dead. Anyway, it turned out the much less popular other John Smith was the one who died. They made a lovely memorial for the wrong guy, who was forgotten totally. We still run into people to this day who see him and are like, hey, aren't you supposed to be dead? This is actually horribly sad for the guy that actually died. Still freaking hysterical though. I know, right? I didn't remember him at all, and obviously nobody else did either. He died whitewater rafting, so I hope he was living his best post-HS life. Some girl confessed to cheating on her high school sweetheart, thinking enough time had passed it wouldn't bother him. She thought wrong. The reunion was 10 years later. The two of them hadn't seen each other in years. As far as I know, they broke up shortly after high school ended. After she broke the news, somewhat nonchalantly as well, the guy flipped out and slapped her, then started screaming at her. She ran away, at which point he broke down and said something about wasting his high school years and left. We still managed to have a good time even after all that though, which was nice. And all you comedians misspelling school and saying Bob isn't cool, insert appropriately severe threat here. Wait, is she still together with her high school sweetheart? Or she saw an old fling at the reunion and casually admitted to cheating on him? The second. They hadn't seen each other in years as far as I know. Someone I knew from school tried to arrange an unofficial reunion as the school weren't going to do one. He was socially inept, so would say, and do odd things which people picked up on a lot. But his heart was always in the right place. He went to a lot of effort, but very few people responded at all. Those that did mostly made snide comments about the event behind their back, like dissing the location, etc. Some made fun of him personally too, as he was doing some admittedly odd organizing. Then close to the event he cancels and blows up, sending everyone a justified message about how they can all go suck eggs, and he was just trying to do something nice and wanted to catch up with people. That was received with more snide remarks too. He died unexpectedly just a few months later. That's really sad. People can be pieces of crap sometimes, right? Who the hell throws their own reunion? God, I hope the /s isn't needed. My 10-year reunion killed itself before it happened. Turns out our class president, traditionally in charge of organizing, took a hard turn into a footless character after high school. Edit. Originally said she took a hard turn for the evangelical. Several commenters objected to me lumping this brand of crazy into evangelism, for which I apologize. Highlights of her event planning include: no alcohol allowed, not even by OB. A few classmates in a reasonably successful band offered to play for free. She was adamant there would be no music or dancing. Plus ones were to be spouses only. 2 guys happily told her they'd bring their husbands, and she kicked them both from the Facebook page. The venue was a high school soccer field in Iowa. In August, we were welcome to bring our own chairs. A few people offered to bring beanbags and box and similar games. She said no, because it would make the reunion too much like tailgating. Suggested entertainment was a guided tour of the school, which had undergone zero change since we graduated. Catering was from Hy-Vee, which is a grocery store. Their food is actually okay, but tickets were $60. It was ultimately cancelled because out of our class of 300, less than 10 people bought tickets. Yeah, that's a good lesson in who had authority. You can just, instead, talk to everyone else and agree to meet separately. Authoritarianism. She wanted to tell other people what they could or could not do at the expense of the group. I hope she doesn't have kids. didn't happen to me, but I had this friend who got someone pregnant back in the day, and she kept the kid. They've both been great about it. He helps financially, but that was the extent of his contribution. She married soon out of high school, and met a great guy who has been the de facto dad. Either way, it's a day bring your kids. If you have an event and someone let slip that my friend is that kid's real dad, and the kid heard it and it was a freaking crap show. Everyone was trying to figure out who said that, and how could someone spill that secret, etc. In the end my friend pretended he was shocked, and laughed it off as a joke, which honestly in front of the kid was probably a good move. At first, I just thought geez, what a peen about the person who told. But then I realized that I could totally see myself absent-mindedly saying something about it to someone else. If the kid heard it by accident, the person who told must have felt terrible, lol. The absent-minded thing is how my great-aunts found out their stepmom wasn't their actually mom. My great-grandmother died in childbirth with the twins, and my great-grandfather remarried quickly cause that's what you did. At their first communion, someone said to someone else, their mother would be so proud to see what beautiful girls they are, or something to that effect. Turned into a very interesting communion. It's been a decade since I finished school. I see an old classmate sometimes when he does maintenance work in my apartment block. About a year ago he asked if I was going to the reunion organized by some of our classmates. I said no, because I couldn't think of anything worse, and also hadn't been invited. Apparently they organized it over Facebook, which I don't have. When I next saw him 6 months later I asked how the reunion was, and he exasperatedly explained that it had been a real crap show. The mean girls had started planning it together, fell out, and then started each planning their own. So there was about 4 crappy tiny awkward parties and everyone was confused. This sounds like it should have been a TLC show where the judges vote on whose party was the best. The winner gets to go on a date with the former star QB who picks them up on his old motorcycle. Guaranteed my wife would watch it, and I'd be rolling my eyes throughout it. The people who were supposed to plan our high school reunion dropped the ball, so I figured it wouldn't happen. But then this other dude from our high school stepped up to plan it. He was in a graduate program and also working part-time at a banquet hall, and he said that his boss would give us the banquet hall space for free. It was a really nice gesture, and he seemed really into it. He had been miserable in high school. Grumpy, sullen, unpleasant, mean to other people. He came out in college, so maybe the weight of having to keep it a secret was part of why he was so unpleasant. Maybe he'd be more fun now. I was working a crap job and had no savings at the time, so I was neither interested in having my former classmates pity me nor was I gunning to shell out a lot of money to attend. Plus my crappy ex might be there, and that didn't feel worth it. The organizer made a Facebook event and asked people to Venmo him the cost of admission prior to attending. He wanted something like $15.20 a head. I can't remember. Anyway, it didn't really feel worth paying for. Maybe if there would be some drinks included or something, I would go for an hour. I sent him a private message asking what the admissions ticket covered: food, drinks. The space was free, after all. He posted publicly on the Facebook page that if the cost of admission was too steep, message me and we can work out some financial aid. What? I then publicly posted asking what the admission cost covered. No response. Other people asked too. He said it would go towards having a bartender and server dedicated to the event space, as well as towards food. Okay, fair. Folks, he was the server. My friend showed up having not yet paid him, and he barred her entry. The people who had paid the admission cost showed up to an empty banquet hall, were given a menu by their former classmate, and told to order their own food and drink from him. He pocketed the admission ticket money as his fee. After an hour, he brought out one grocery store sheet cake for 75 people to share. That was it. Lol. I'm envisioning people fighting for the crappy cake. I was told there would be cake. Not mine, but my husband's 10-year anniversary for high school graduates. The whole thing was really just sloppily slapped together, and it was pretty clear the class was not interested in getting together. The gathering place kept changing every couple weeks. This was updated via Facebook group BTW. At first, it was renting a place and getting food catered and whatnot. except it's pretty typical in my town for most people not to go on to be successful by any means, so asking mostly unemployed or minimum wage workers to cough up I think $200 to attend just didn't work out. Venues kept downgrading to accommodate until they got down to having a bonfire out by the lake. By ob, no fee, just come hang out for like an hour or something. Throughout the fiasco of finding a venue, a majority of the class declined going. Some had to change status. There was a good handful still marked as going, but with everything changing and people obviously starting to tune out midway through, a lot of people forgot to change their status of going to not going. 2 people showed up. That was it. One was my brother, who had nothing better to do anyway. Other guy that sort of helped put the crap show together showed up. The gal that set the whole thing up was pretty mad about it, and the rando dude that helped posted a long rant on the Facebook about how awful people were and how they should have appreciated the efforts it took just to hold the pathetic gathering. My husband had me sit and flip through the page after everything was said and done. It was pretty obvious the gal was in serious denial the entire time, despite it being pretty clear nobody wanted anything to do with the event. I laughed at the rant, then honestly forgot about it until I saw this thread. Sounds exactly like my 10-year reunion. About 10-12 people ended up showing up. I didn't go, but saw the pictures on Facebook, and the girl who organized it posted a long rant on the Facebook event page. I found the whole thing quite amusing as I've always disliked this particular girl, and she was a huge bitch to me in high school. My 10-year reunion happened last Thanksgiving weekend. I'm from Central Jersey and they decided to have it in New York City for some god-awful reason, instead of in Princeton like R5. Yeah, I wasn't renting a room in New York City during a holiday weekend to see a handful of people I kind of cared about in a random bar. We had like 400 people in our grad. About 40 responded as going to the Facebook invite. From the few photos I saw, it seemed like it was a total of 20 people who went. Basically the group of popular kids. None of my friends attended, and I hate it, but since November I've really wondered how many people went. I did see a post from our class prees thanking everyone who went, so it ended up at least being a good time in the end. But damn it, I wanna know how many people attended. So far it was the only thing that happened at my high school reunion. 10th reunion. Graduating class of +/850. Well-funded high school. Every class has a trust fund to fund reunions. A good friend of mine was our treasurer and organized it via Facebook. We started big. Ballroom, setting for 1,000. Figured spouses/etc. A year out. Lots of interest. Definitely not 1,000 people interest. Started to scale back. 6 months out, less interest. Lots of people reconnected via Facebook and lost the drive to actually care. Scaled back more. 3 months out was deadlines for attendance. The school's alumni association would dispense the funds based on class size and allotment for the milestone. We hadn't put a deposit down because the target kept moving on attendance. 2 months out my friend finalizes and does the formal cut-off. She had kept taking anything for a month due to lack of interest. Dave, it's at a local bar. Not a small bar either. Good food. Rented the entire place for a Friday night at that 25-ish alumni showed out of 150 RSVPs, with spouses or whatever, was around 40 people. That was the worst part is knowing so few people actually gave a crap, but the best part was the treasurer's smirk the entire night. The school had allotted $50 per person for this. $50 per person, plus guests. $15,000 with instructions to pay everything fully. We drank and ate our asses off to the point of almost being Roman. And the bill was $7,500 between food and rental. She paid the bill, then handed everyone $100 from the envelope, and then handed the rest of the envelope to the manager, and was like here's the tip. So, roughly $3,000 for the wait staff and crew. Pretty memorable and honestly not that big of a bummer, but holy crap people just don't care. Sounds like an awesome party. It really does. The fact that they tipped a crazy amount, rather than just keeping all the cash, after a lavish evening of course, says so much about the kind of people they are, the kind I wanna go out with for dinner. 10-year reunion invite came up, and I thought yeah looks like it could be fun. I notice the venue is fancy restaurant. Disappointed, expecting some sort of party. Room is very limited. For a class of over 100 you would think they would have picked a venue with over 25 capacity. I start reaching out to all the friends I've kept in touch with. Not one of them is even remotely interested in going. My old high school best friend suggests we catch up at his and drink instead. Haven't seen him in years, so I bail on the reunion. Turns out almost no one went. One of the girls that organized the thing was begging my mates to go because she was so embarrassed how little people had RSVP'd. She ended up bailing herself. Turns out for the 10 people that actually went, half of which organized it, they had to be split up since they booked a place that was not intended for large groups of people. Unironically, the same group that organized it took it upon themselves to organize our end of school formal Aussie 4 prom. They decided for themselves that we didn't want to go with the original plan and completely replanned it without really consulting the general student body. So many people bailed on it that they had to start inviting ex-students, dropped out, changed schools, expelled, takes some real crap, to get expelled from a Catholic school in Australia, just to meet the minimum capacity the venue required to move forward with the date. Honestly, I know they meant well, but this group ruined the formal for a lot of people. I don't know why I expected anything good from their reunion. Apparently the after party was wild, though. Someone almost got thrown off the boat, literally into the water at 2 in the morning, and a guy we know copped a peen in the eye. Good old Aussie after parties. There's always that one dude who either whips his peen out, or gets butt naked. Always. Went to my high school reunion. I honestly don't know why I did. The friends I kept in touch with, well, I kept in touch with, but one friend managed to convince me otherwise and so I went. The reunion wasn't bad. It was mostly people trying their best to one-up each other in their bid to look successful. I sat down at a table next to my friend, where I was actually enjoying my time catching up with long-forgotten acquaintances. During the reunion, there were 2 people who stood out the most. There was this chick that I barely recognized. My friend and I kept asking each other if she was in our graduating class or a spouse of one. Found out later that she spent close to $80,000 for cosmetic surgery, hence being unidentifiable. She was so proud of herself that nobody was able to recognize her. Seriously, she cold been a candidate on Botched, but who was I to pop her bubble? The other was a guy who was so snooty back in high school. We are talking the cliche, if your address wasn't within a certain neighborhood, you weren't good enough to acknowledge kind of snobbery. Well, he arrived late for the dinner portion and all the seats at his old friend's table were already taken. So he sullenly sat down with the likes of us. Yikes. Having to sit with people you looked down on all your teenage life. The poor man. So I took pity on him, because most of the people at the table probably remembered his attitude as well and ignored him. I started asking him questions of how he's fared since graduation, etc. This was our conversation, while the DJ was blasting music and others were yelling over the din to be heard, within their own chats. Me, so what are you doing now, snob? The name of guy was changed to protect the innocent. Snob, I work at Smith & Smith attorney law firm. Not a real company, but you get the gist. Me, that's impressive. Are you a lawyer? Studying to be a lawyer? Snob, no. I'm working on it. Me, oh. Articling at your law firm? Snob, no. Me, you work at Smith & Smith. So what exactly is it that you do? Movie moment, I kid you not. The DJ cut the music so that the MC could make the announcement that dinner was to be served shortly. But before that happened, Snob got frustrated with all my questions and stated loudly into the unexpected silence, I'm a mailroom clerk. Everyone stared and hates to say this, accidental justice was served. Snob was taken down a peg or two by his own hands. Stories like these are very satisfying. It's cliche, but it's good.